And recording. I like that sophistication. That's cool. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool. I think you have an echo.
I think so, too. I'm trying to figure out where it's coming from. Let's see. Turn off some mics here. Test, test, test. All right. Yeah, I think we're good. You hear it now?
Nope, I think we're better.
Oh, you know what? I had one of my other mics open over here that you can't see. And
yeah, it wasn't like a regular echo. It was more of a, okay, that makes sense. So,
all right. So let's try this again. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Persuasion by the Pint. Sean, today we're going to be discussing, continue our discussion of that great book, Breakthrough Advertising. Fantastic read. We're going to continue our devil's advocate conversation on, does this actually work today?
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing state of awareness and market sophistication.
Yes. Little nod to an email guy up in the Northwest who likes to use funny spelling words.
Get your attention.
Yeah. So,
and
you have to be on the YouTube channel to understand that comment we just made. So
that's right. You have to see the scrolling ticker.
Yeah.
To see our misspelled words, but we're going to be talking about that book, and then but before that, we're going to be discussing some interesting technology in the world of AI that will blow you away.
Yeah, it's happening fast. I don't have that video queued up, but we'll talk about it. And then, and this also has hit mainstream as far as people talking about it. So it's not just like the internet marketing and, sales circles. I saw a similar thing on CBS. So it's definitely coming fast, and we'll talk about that real quick, and then we'll get into the book. But first, we're switching it up today on the show.
Yes.
We're not doing beer because, beer sales are down. So we're just going to follow the trend. We're not going to think our own thoughts. We're just going to do what the public is doing and get rid of beer, and we'll just drink bourbon instead.
Good old-fashioned bourbon.
Yeah. And bourbon has exploded over the last 20 years. So
it has.
Used to be like 20, 10 to 20 bottles in a liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's entire aisles of bourbon.
Oh, of course.
It's like everything though, right? Everything has exploded in numbers.
And it's not just Kentucky anymore. It's like, used to Kentucky was the heartland of bourbon country, but I guess it's still the case. But you're finding, bourbons, Texas bourbons, you're finding bourbons out of all sorts of areas of the country that you never would have expected.
Funny you should mention Texas bourbons.
Funny I should mention that.
Yeah, I've got
yes, there we go.
So on the screen here, I'm showing Iron Wolf Ranch and Distillery.
Yep.
Out in the Texas Still country. There's a little town here in Texas, just west of Austin, called Dripping Springs. And they have become like a little bourbon and whiskey, like a distillery type little destination spot. Dozens of distilleries have popped up and breweries and things like that. And then you go a little further west to Fredericksburg and it's wine country. But yeah, just west of Austin, there's this whole little distillery community popping up with some really good stuff. So today I'm going to be having...
I love that logo, by the way. It's just really cool.
Their bottles are really cool too. And there's a lot of story and thinking and marketing behind their bottles as well. But I'm having this one here, the Hot Scotch. It's a butterscotch whiskey with a blend of Texas peppers for a back-end heat.
Ooh.
A unique sweet and spicy favorite.
That's a silver medal award winner.
It is. So, it's pretty cool. And check out this bottle. Like, they talk about why they did this bottle the way they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So the rounded top is more like a bourbon or whiskey I think.
Yeah.
No, the square bottom is like a bourbon or whiskey. And
Right.
then the rounded top is more like your traditional spirits, like your
Yeah.
vodkas and rums
Mhm.
and things like that. So they did both. But then on the bottom, they had imprinted in the bottom a wolf's paw print.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's cool.
yeah. And the label is like a metal-y kind of label. It's not paper. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's a little bit thicker than paper. It's got a metal feel
So
to
what do
it.
you do? It's hard to get rid of bottles like that. It's just so
I
cool.
know, but I just go buy another one.
That's right.
There's always one in the cabinet, So, and what you're having, I think I pulled the right one up. Is this correct?
That's it.
Yeah.
Little Blade and Bow, Kentucky straight bourbon. I've never had this. So it looks good. It comes with a little key, and I don't know what's so symbolic. I know there's a story behind.
Well, they
the
do have a
key.
5 keys club. Have you collected all 5 keys? We are now able to
Oh, okay.
brands of the brand in all 50 states. Visit the 5 Keys Club page.
There we go.
So apparently there's 5 keys. Let's see.
Well, I'll start one. I've got my first one.
There you go. So apparently there's 5. I don't know.
What happens when I get all 5? It's like all the rings or.
Yeah. You become a valued customer, apparently.
Great.
Your lifetime customer value goes up. That's
Oh.
what happens. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about the keys. I'll have to look into that. Doesn't really say much on here about the keys, other than the club, which I guess you have to go to a whole nother page. Oh yeah, you got to sign up for it. Good way to collect.
Okay.
Good way to collect info right there. A little direct response going on.
Yep.
Not a bad idea. So not bad.
I'm reading the side of the bottle, and it says, of course, I almost need reading glasses for this, Sean. It says the 5 keys of Blade and Bow once hung on the front door of the iconic Stiltzer Weller Distillery. These heavy brass keys represented the 5 steps of crafting bourbon and symbolized the art of making the world's finest whiskeys.
Got it. There you go.
I don't buy into any of that, but that sounds cool.
Good story.
It's a great story.
Next thing you know, somebody will write an ad about how to make beer and use like clean bottles and stuff.
That's right.
Opposed to dirty bottles.
That's right. Claude Hopkins would be proud.
Yes. So,
all right.
Whatever it takes, right? All right. Well, let's cheers it up.
Cheers.
Using my carpenter's cup.
Got to show off this bad boy here.
Mm-hmm.
The drink of champions.
Ooh. Forgot how much heat that has.
Ooh.
Wow. That's perfect for my sore throat still. My slight.
It's the spot.
It's like a really good cough syrup.
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like. Because it's definitely thicker than like a straight bourbon because it's got some sweetness to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's got that pepper back end.
That sounds really good. A little butterscotch and pepper.
And by the way, check this out. You can now buy from the store, Jonathan. You can have Iron Wolf in your home.
What?
Maybe. Let's see. Can you get it in Tennessee? Yes, they will ship to Tennessee.
Fantastic.
So I will send you the link. I'll drop it in your text right now as we're
perfect.
Speaking. Technology, man. We can get you anywhere you want in just seconds. Speaking of technology, well, first of all, I guess we should rate these. We haven't rated it. We missed a couple ratings, I know, in a couple episodes.
Oh, by the way, this year I am starting the process of adding our ratings to the show page. After 6 years of doing this show,
well, you got to leave some room for improvement.
That's right.
I mean, you can't come out the gate perfect.
That's right. Yeah.
It just, you got to leave room. A little room for growth and innovation, right? I like it.
So our ratings will be published, so they'll be open to the public from here on out.
Very nice. Very nice. We should have an app or something. I don't know.
That's
right.
Probably
there was an app to rate beers.
That's right.
Cool. We could have been logging all these beers all this time, and I never got an app. I probably drunk more beers than anybody on the apps. Different beers.
I know. Seriously.
It's like, surely, I mean, I bet there's not many people in America that have had 300 plus different craft beers.
We've
Gotta be a
got to
pretty
be
small
in
number.
pretty small company there, Sean.
Yeah.
What is the most famous, the more famous app is
Beer Advocate.
yeah, beer. Well,
That one, or that's the magazine. I
that's
don't remember. If you just look up like beer rating apps, it's probably whatever comes up first.
yeah.
Let me just type in.
There was
beer.
one I know that I used to have a client of mine that used to use this app. Every time he would go out, he took this thing seriously. He would log every one. It was almost like a game. Yeah, Untapped. That's it. Untapped. Yeah, it was a game to him. So every time he looked for a new beer just so he could log it in.
That's hard to do unless you travel a lot,
Yeah.
It's hard to get, but it's easier now. But
yep.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and rate.
I honestly don't know how to. It's hard to rate. I mean, it's good. I don't know what qualifications. Not that we're all that. We're not super experts when it comes to beer either. But I just say, if I like something, it's smooth. It tastes good.
Yep.
This tastes just like any other good bourbon that I would have. So I guess I would give it I guess I'll give it a 4. I give it a 4.2. Okay. 4.2.
All right. Well, I'm going to give this a 4.9 because it is obviously it's flavored, so it falls in a different category.
Yeah.
But I give it a 4.9, almost a 5 for originality.
Okay.
And the fact that it's got that sweet and spicy, it's not like Jack Daniel's honey that's just sweet, or just a hot scotch, which is, mostly, excuse me, that is what this is called, hot scotch, but not like a cinnamon or a fireball or something like that, where it's all, spice. This is a nice balance between the two.
Okay.
And for that reason, just on originality alone and good flavor, I'm going to give it a 4.9.
Ooh, teetering on the edge there.
Yep. Yeah. So I feel like you can't give flavored whiskey a 5, I think that's just a little sacrilegious. So I'm going to hold out.
And see, at the same time, I don't know, outside of something that's more distinguished, I don't know if it's my palate, or maybe I just need to read up on stuff more to be able to distinguish this bottle from a bottle of, Elijah Craig or something else. It's just,
but there's a huge
Four Roses. I can tell a difference in Four Roses.
It's got a
floral.
Yeah, it's very distinct. So if you can start to notice like that, and then you get your, like the aged bourbons and whiskeys tend to be more smoky, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the more expensive they get, they tend to be actually smokier because it takes longer to age them.
Yeah.
I had which actually like the less smoky. I don't like the super smoky.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. I had the Woodford Double Oak over the holidays, and
too much smoke, right?
Yeah, a little too much there. Too much
char.
I'd say too much oakiness in it for me. Yeah. I'd rather just have a regular.
Yeah, it's like overcooking your burger. You start to taste the char instead of the burger.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You don't want that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, let's talk about AI a little bit, just real quick, and then we'll get into breakthrough advertising, chapters 2 and maybe 3 if we're lucky. So I sent you a video last night, and I saw one of my friends on Facebook, Jeff Hunter. He's an AI consultant. He jumped on this early and hard. He helps people set up AI personas, all kinds of cool stuff that he's doing with AI.
Right.
And he sent out a video yesterday where he actually looked a little surprised and a little like, oh my God, like what have we unleashed here? And he's a big AI fanboy. He's making a lot of money off AI.
Yeah.
And even this seemed to give him a little bit of pause. Now, I don't know if it's acting. I don't know if it's, for drama or for whatever. But it feels like this hit him a little harder than it had in other things. So basically what he did is he played on this video a recording of where you can set up your own call center using AI. Now, with this, you obviously have to have a pretty good bit of information for the AI to draw off of, like your FAQs, your rules, your procedures, a lot of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Which you probably have if you have a call center, right? Because you don't want call center people just making this stuff up. So you probably already have that. So it's specifically more for call center people, but it could be used for a lot of different things. This thing sounded, other than there was a lag when he asked a question. Other than that, I thought this sounded the most like a person of any AI I've heard so far.
Yeah, it's scary. It's really scary.
And it was not only like answering questions well, it was trying to close the sale. Every question, every answer ended with a closing question. Like it would never get tired. It didn't get frustrated. I think at the end he said, this AI tool could answer 1,800 calls at the same time, 24 hours a day. And it was about $5,000 to set up and maybe $1,000 or $2,000 a month. So you're looking at $30,000 a year, which is less than an entry-level employee.
It's crazy.
And it could answer 1,800 calls at a time and never deviate, never get tired, never cop an attitude, never call in sick. And he made the point, like the entire Philippine economy may have just got hit hard because that's where a lot
crushed.
Yeah.
So do you want to, I actually Bluetooth this in on my phone. Do you want to let our listeners like hear a little snippet of this?
Yeah, because we just made a pretty big bold claim, so maybe we should just let them hear it.
All right, here we go.
Hey there, my name is Jeff, and I am an AI consultant, and I'm looking for some solutions I can offer my clients for like some inbound, outbound voice, possibly customer support. Is that something you can help me with?
Hey, Jeff, totally. That's right up our alley. So you're looking for AI solutions for voice calls, right? Like for both taking care of customers calling in and also reaching out to folks? What kind of businesses are your clients running? Just so I can get a better picture of what we're looking at.
Well, most of my clients have like brick and mortar businesses, but a lot of them are online business owners. I'd actually say the majority of them are like digital marketing agencies, coaches, and consultants. Let's just start with that.
Oh, cool. Digital marketing agencies, coaches, and consultants, huh? They must be super busy with calls and stuff. So our AI can totally help with that. We can handle the appointment setting, answer FAQs, and even follow up on leads for them. Plus, we can do it in a bunch of languages. Does that sound like something that could make their lives easier?
Absolutely.
I think that's good. Other than the lag.
Yeah, right. There's a little bit of pause.
Yeah.
There. So you see what's happening. It's processing.
Yeah, they'll obviously fix that pretty quick. Even if they just, figure out how to put a filler word in there.
Yeah.
Or something. Hey, where he's like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me think about this. Yeah.
That's what I was
just repeating, like he's, it was repeating back. It could just repeat back a little faster. So you're asking blah, blah, blah. Yeah. At the same time, it's, processing the answer.
Yeah. But the way it like repeated back the key points, and then it asked for more information, and then it asked a closing, a confirmation type question. Yeah. This went on for a good 5 minutes. And it was flawless. He tried to throw it a couple curveballs, change the type of business.
Right.
And it just picked up, man. It was just like crazy. Well, then I was last Sunday, I was watching CBS Sunday Morning, because I'm old and that's what old people do on Sundays.
That's where you get your news.
Yeah. And for a while there, it got super political. They've kind of toned it back down a little bit, which is nice because I almost stopped watching. But anyway, they had a segment on call centers.
Okay.
Theirs was not quite as like as crazy as that. They were kind of trying to take a little bit of the middle road. Like they didn't want to scare too many people, but the fact that it made it to a mainstream, morning news show was pretty telling.
Sure.
And they kind of ended it with AI will help make call center employees' lives easier is how they ended it. The fact is it's going to replace 80% the top 20. Yeah. And the top 20% will get to stay and like answer the human only questions for now.
Yeah.
But they set up like a fake CBS Airlines is what they called it. Okay. Set it up, and he started asking it questions about flights and about, carry-ons and can I bring a service animal, all that kind of stuff. And it just like sounded human. That one had no delay. I don't know if they edited it out, but it was really, really convincing and very, very calm. And that's the thing. Like, how, Jonathan, you're in sales, you can feel somebody's when they start to get a little upset, no matter what their words are.
Right.
You can feel that tone and that energy on a call.
Yeah.
And that's one thing you'll never get, some people would say, well, that's why it'll never work because it's not human. It doesn't have that stuff. But the fact is, I think in these situations, that actually makes it more powerful than a human because it doesn't have that. It's not going to overreact. When somebody calls in upset.
Right.
Yep. Now that could upset some people.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it's scary how good that one we listened to.
Yeah, it was very calm and collected. Completely just, outside of the delay, no, didn't shake it whatsoever. All the questions he answered right away. And if you actually listen further into that, he asked him some very specific questions regarding some very niche markets. Like, I think he was talking like dog grooming, a dog grooming service.
Yeah.
And, the AI started answering questions specific to that and was talking in terms of that specific business that you can bring.
And even unprompted,
fluffy.
Even unprompted was kind of, it understood, it understood that what would be required in a dog grooming business, a front desk, like it inferred some stuff that he did not say.
Right.
That the caller did not say, right. It understood the context of a dog grooming business would probably have a front desk receptionist, would have appointments, would have all this other stuff. And it just inferred all that automatically.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. This reminds me too of our conversation with Gulliver, Thor, the sales warlord. Back in the day, he was saying how they're using AI more to analyze human salespeople, but he also said that this is coming. And here it is. So, and I know some sales places are already using this as their sales teams.
Yeah,
they're absolutely just not telling anybody about it.
Right. Right. And I would personally use a service like this. Even, you have to embrace technology, or you're either afraid of it or you embrace it. And so, I'm already thinking last night as I'm listening to this, on one hand, it's like, wow, this is crazy. But I don't think of it in terms of, a replacement type thing. I think of it in terms of, man, I could utilize a tool like this. Think of a person that wants to focus their time on the quality of leads, on the big quality, the pre-qualified people or companies that you're dealing with that have certain metrics that you need to know, and you don't have to waste your time. So you've got a AI service that's out there qualifying each one of those, making those calls automatically. And then you're really dealing from more of a consultative level, which personally, that's where my skill set lies. And I hate cold calling. I absolutely hate it.
Well, there's so much emotion and resistance and all that stuff to cold calling. Unless you're just, one of those guys that just thrives on that stuff. But I don't know anybody that actually, you go back to the movies like Boiler Room or, it's brutal.
It is.
Cold calling is
And
It's one of those things that humans, I don't think, are designed for.
No, it's not. And so I avoid cold calling as much as possible. I try to use direct mail, email to, to prompt responses or to at least get some familiarity in front of someone before, even making a phone call and trying to build lead gens that way. But I'll tell you, this could cut down the time frame or the amount of work and the time that goes into sifting, through, XYZ or so many companies out there that fit your criteria, but you have to narrow. There's some companies out there that you just have to you waste a lot of conversation only to realize they don't fit the criteria.
Right. I mean, if you were to do, I'm thinking back to my list days, was there like 34 or 35 million small businesses in the US?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sounds right.
So even if you were to niche that down and got down to a list of 50,000, let's say.
Yeah. Right.
You're never going to cold call all those people.
No, of course not.
Right. Because even if you cold called the first 1,000, you're probably busy for the next 6 months if you actually did that, or 10,000, depending on your niche and stuff. Because then you start getting busy servicing the people that you met, and then you stop cold calling. That's just how it tends to work. Unless you've got, like in Boiler Room where you have a senior rep that you pass the calls off to.
Right.
And you just get back on the phones. But the
Absolutely.
fact is, most people aren't going to do that. So if you could go through that list. Of course, that's kind of what robocalls do, but this just takes it to another level. Because it could ask better questions, it could get better responses and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the question, Jonathan. So you said you might as well use AI, right? Don't fight it, use it.
Yeah.
And I was reading another article last night, and it was one of the big AI guys who probably I think he was with DeepMind at Google and some of the other stuff. And he was giving a warning about AI and how, it's going to take a lot of jobs. And I've seen a lot of these articles, right? And every single one of them, without exception, that I've read so far, they're like, yeah, I left Google or I left wherever, OpenAI, whoever, because I just see the dangers and I don't agree with what they're doing. And then at the end of the article or somewhere in the article say, now he's a founder of blah, blah, blah AI.
Yeah.
Like, okay, right? Because he's gonna do it better, and just erase the threat.
His moral compass is shifted a little there, I guess. I don't know.
It's you see the dangers of it, and you can see how it could replace people.
Yeah,
but it's so powerful, you can't ignore it, and you'd be stupid to not at least try to take advantage of it. But then, are you feeding the beast? Are you feeding the machine?
Yeah,
by doing that, But if you try to take an idealistic stand, you're just going to get left behind and wiped out. So how do you, I don't know that you do. I don't think you can just kind of stand by and see what happens. I think you have to adapt. And I think that's what all these guys are doing. But it is like this weird, I kind of feel that way with social media, but this is so much more powerful than social media.
It really is. Yeah.
I have the little bit of conflict with social media, people are wasting time on social media. So if you put out content, are you feeding the machine that makes people depressed and lonely and all that kind of stuff? Right.
Right.
I feel like that has more of an off button than what we're about to build and create with AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and companies are slow to, at least, tech companies aren't slow, but, other companies, other industries are going to be slow to embrace or slow to make this. So I think people have, depending on what industry you're in, you have time to get behind it and understand it, but simply denying it and simply just trying to avoid it or not dealing with it without learning more about it and how you can utilize it. I'm already learning, not from this standpoint, but I'm already incorporating some AI technology into my even lead gen within my company, being able to pull leads using AI software. And I'll talk about that. I won't talk about that on this episode, but maybe on the next couple of episodes, I'll mention that because I'm working with a company that they use AI for really, I mean, accurately pulling out, like if you're trying to locate like, it's mainly for B2B, but if you're trying to locate that person that you need to be in touch with, like it's difficult. I mean, you go on LinkedIn, you're not going to have, you're trying to connect with people on LinkedIn, but some people don't stay on LinkedIn. Yep. But if you're looking to pinpoint the ideal person that you need to talk to within an organization, whether it's the president, whether it's the sales manager, whether it's the purchasing person, you can go to that website and you can click on and use this AI software and just get the whole directory in front of you instantly.
Wow.
And it rivals, to me, I've used like Zoom Info and tools like that in the past. They've been around forever. Those are outdated because they don't update those on a regular basis. This technology is like instantly. I mean, it's like,
wow.
And most of it's accurate because I've tested some of these. We've had some CEOs in the past on our show that use, I would say, I wouldn't call them scraping like type softwares, but they utilize LinkedIn. This is completely different to pull the information. And I can get cell numbers. I can get emails and all types of information of the people that I'm trying to reach out to in an instant using software. So
wild.
I'll embrace it any day if it helps me improve or helps give me an edge. At the end of the day, it's kind of like that old saying, adapt or die.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And, like I totally understand the argument that, whenever new technology comes, historically it has proven to create more jobs, not take away jobs.
Yeah.
But for what, and I've been, you and I are, over 50, like we understand that we've seen a few trends, right? We saw the first version of the internet come on, social media, like all this stuff. But this to me just feels different.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It just feels more like replacement than anything else we've had in the past.
Yep.
And I know the guys, with horse and buggies felt that way about cars, but this, but people had to make the cars. Like it just doesn't take that much to make AI.
No.
It's not like an industrial change or a big tech change making computers. Like, yeah, there's cloud servers and there's going to be people doing all that. But man, a lot of that can be self-sustained with AI.
Yeah.
So it's it'll be interesting to see. I think being a cloud being a server technician is probably good. Or someone who manufactures servers,
right,
is probably a really good business to be in, because that's
and if you're, I would say this, if you're in a position, if you're in like phone sales where that's like you're in home, like you're making cold calls on a regular basis. Most of what I do is consulting, so there's an aspect where I can say, well, how safe am I, from a standpoint that a lot of what I do relies on in-person communication, technical expertise, and coming and evaluating, troubleshooting, and then a relationship aspect where customers are looking for relationship. Obviously, relationship plays a big part of what you're doing, because at the end of the day, a lot of the companies you're working with, it's all about if they know, like, and trust you. And can you develop that from a software? Give it time. I don't know, maybe.
Hey, Max Headroom was hosting MTV videos, put some VJs out of work.
That's right.
And that was 50 years ago or however long. Right. I don't want to talk about how long ago that was.
Yeah. But it's we talk about college football on here because we're both college football fans, but it's like I watched Nick Saban's been in the news the last couple of weeks because he retired.
Yeah.
Well, people say that one of the things that drove him out of coaching was a lot of change that's going on, namely NIL deals and players wanting to get paid, and everything that's the whole shifting landscape of college football today.
Right.
It's happening. So, but I've heard other coaches out there that say, obviously, it's here to stay. So you are either embrace it where you are, or you get left behind. And some people get left behind. Some people say, you know what, I'm done. I'm taking my money and I'm cashing out and leaving. So,
well, that's the thing. Like if I had the money, heck, I might decide the same thing and just go pick up art or something,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But for those of us that have to continue working, it is something where you're like, maybe I need to embrace this, make as much money as I can in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And I would also say, what are people, the old Jeff Bezos question, like what's not going to change in 10 years? And I think one thing that won't change is people will want human contact.
Absolutely.
I think it'll be different because there's already like AI boyfriends and girlfriends have like the popularity has gone through the roof already. Like if you really dive into that wormhole, you'd be surprised at how effective and how passionate humans are about having these AI boyfriends and girlfriends. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But with that said, I think there's an opportunity for more in-person events. I think, coaching, for instance, in my world, I think more in-person coaching and experiences. We've talked about experiences before on the show. I think experiences will be important moving forward. Festivals, all that kind of stuff.
Community. People long for community, and
how they're going to be able to afford that, I don't know. Maybe it's universal basic income.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
and it obviously will depend on how quickly or how severely things start getting regulated as jobs start disappearing.
Yeah,
it's going to force legislators to start being like, whoa, like, they're either going to have to tax the corporations and give that money back in a form of some type of universal basic income, or they're going to have to slow the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And I don't know which it's going to be.
Right.
But that seems to me the inevitable outcome of where we're headed. So,
yeah.
All right. So we've talked 37 minutes on everything but breakthrough advertising. So we should probably deliver on our promise of talking about breakthrough advertising.
It's actually a pretty good lead in though, because we're talking about change.
Okay. Do the segue. There you go.
Yeah. The segue is that, we're talking about how to embrace change. We mentioned last week, breakthrough advertising. This was written back in the, late 60s?
Yeah, something like that.
So are these principles and are a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today on, channeling desire, in the 21st century today in 2024, is that going to work the same way as it did back then when this book was originally written? And to some degree, I would say absolutely, because, you can make bold claims. Now, I will give the caveat that on social media today, you have to be very careful about making bold claims.
Well, it depends the type of bold claim, but yeah.
Yeah. You'll get axed in a heartbeat on Facebook ads or whatever. You'll get your account shut down.
Yeah, definitely. If you're talking paid advertising, for sure.
Yeah.
Unless it's clearly, we've talked about this before too, unless it's clearly hyperbole where you're really going over the top with like a Dollar Shave Club type commercial or, an Old Spice type commercial, then you can get away with more stuff. Because it's obviously hyperbole, and as cheesy as those things are, they do work.
Right.
As we've talked about in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we get into chapter 2, I just happened to hear a stat this past week, kind of in the idea of mass market desire, mass market thinking, and things like that. And that was that back in the 70s, early 70s, or whenever MASH, remember the TV show MASH?
Oh yeah, loved it.
Some of our younger listeners may not remember, but that was usually our bet. I've seen some stuff on Instagram or TikTok lately. It's like they'll play the theme song to MASH, and that was usually like Gen Xers' bedtime when that song came on. We weren't allowed. That was like 9:00, right?
Yeah,
so
time to go to bed.
Time to go to bed.
Yeah.
You watch the Muppets show, and then I think MASH or something else came on. Right? But this was an interesting. I heard somebody talking about this, and I don't remember who it was, so I can't give them credit. But they were talking about how they're not sure that there'll ever be like this mass consciousness that there used to be when there was only 3 TV stations.
Yeah.
So, as an example, and they use this as an example, the final episode of MASH had 105 million viewers for that episode. Now, if you don't really know viewership, that's a lot. That's
Right.
about what the Super Bowl gets every year.
Right.
For context.
Yeah.
But let's bring it up to today.
TV shows.
Breaking Bad averaged 4.2 million per episode.
Yeah.
So 1/20th, less than 1/20th, 1/25th of what MASH got.
Yeah.
So the consciousness, the people talking about like a trend or things like that, we think things are trendy or viral now, but in fact, they're far less trendy and less viral than they were 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
Right. Because there was less to choose from.
Oh, absolutely.
And that stuff back then lasted longer.
Yep.
So if you can imagine Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones times 20, 25, that's how much something seeped into the culture 40 or 50 years ago compared to now.
Yep.
So I think that's a big thing that's changed with like mass desire and things. Of course, we talked last week about there's some core things that don't change. But when you're talking about product trends or pop culture trends, they were much stronger back then than they are now. Even though they seem really strong, we forget how strong they were back then.
Right.
So, so I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, let's move into chapter 2. Talks about the actual title of chapter 2 is your prospect's state of awareness, how to capitalize on it when you write your headline. Now, there's way more in this than headlines. In this chapter. This chapter is like 30 or 40 pages. Just this chapter, I think it's maybe 20. I looked at both these chapters this week. It goes from 13 to 36. So yeah. Here's my first things about this. The state of awareness, I think, is one of the biggest and most misunderstood by most marketers, especially new marketers, and even some very seasoned marketers. I can think of a few that I worked with that I tried to get this point across, and it just never clicked for them. And these people tend to be really good at making like direct offers to a warm or hot list, but they're not great at cold traffic offers. Right. And he does not talk about cold or hot or warm traffic in the book, but that's what we would call it today. I think he talks about people who are most aware of your product. He talks about people who are, knows of your product, but doesn't yet want it. That's really hot traffic, cold traffic, warm traffic. It could be organic versus paid. So we have a lot of terms today, hot, warm, cold, organic, paid, right, that he didn't really use in this book because those terms weren't used much, but he used the idea of states of awareness. So if you're trying to understand states of awareness, that's part of it. How well do they know about you, your product, the problem category that your product solves, not necessarily your product, and on and on. Yeah. And I think that's something that people miss, and people can be really good at selling their product to a certain audience, but then they try to scale. And they can't understand why their ads don't scale, why their their advertising, their messaging doesn't scale, because they're not talking to the same person anymore.
That's right. Totally different audience.
Totally different. We talk about golf a lot. Selling a golf club, a driver to a golfer is pretty straightforward. They like to try new things. They like, to have the newest and latest to help them improve their game.
Right.
But if somebody's never played golf and you want to bring them into the sport of golf, and you want to sell them a driver, so that's the first driver they ever use when playing golf, that is an entirely different ad and headline.
Right.
You know, and that's very hard work. That's one thing Agora did really well, was bring new investors into the market that were just coming on. We always said when I worked at Agora, the newsletter business, financial newsletter business, that person that we were looking for was somebody who had been investing. They'd been putting money in the stock market, probably mutual funds, 401k. They had a broker, probably a buddy at the, local club or somebody they knew, brother-in-law or whatever.
Right.
But at some point they get frustrated that they're just kind of barely keeping up with the market, sometimes not even beating the market.
Yeah.
Then they start looking for alternatives, and that's where Agora would show up.
Yeah.
And they would bring those people into the market. So they were already investors, but they had no idea this whole newsletter world existed. Right? They didn't even know you could invest on your own without a broker or without a whatever, right? Because that industry makes sure that you think that's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. There's only one way.
So they were really good at expanding their market and taking those people who were I wouldn't say non-investors, but non-self-directed investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And turning them into self-directed investors. And so that'd be like taking a non-golfer and turning them into a golfer, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they played sports, maybe they played tennis, but then now you're going to turn them into a golfer.
Yeah.
Right. That's a much bigger ask than just selling an already existing golfer a new golf club. And that's
because you're talking different lingo. You're not shaving. They don't care about shaving strokes off of their game. All they care about is not being embarrassed when they go out for the first time and on the fairway with some of their buddies or with a client. I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So what's going to help me? What's going to keep me from looking like an idiot?
And that's why some of the highest paid copywriters and marketers in the world are people that can take cold traffic.
Yeah.
Who don't know anything about your product, even your niche, and take them from, from not even thinking about the problem to realizing they have a problem and buying the product in 15 to 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
Maybe 45 minutes, with a long VSL.
Because ultimately it's human psychology, and it boils down to what is your fear?
Yeah.
What is either your dream or your fear? It typically, unfortunately, a lot of times it falls on the fear side of things that works best, especially if you're new, if you're dealing with new, I guess, Sean, would that be right? If you're dealing with new people that you're bringing in, cold. I mean, you're playing on fears a lot of times with these people.
A lot of times, yeah, because you've got to shock them out of their complacency. Like they don't even know they have a problem
until you
tell them. I mean, Dan Kennedy talked about this before. It's like,
like
in the fire, like if you were sitting in the kitchen, and your neighbor comes to your back door and he's banging on the glass and he's trying to get your attention because he sees that your front porch is on fire, right?
Yeah.
He could take a very like he could send you a letter in the mail that says fire extinguishers 25% off.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know your front porch is on fire,
that's right.
You don't care.
That's right.
So he's got to do something more drastic.
You got to set the stage. Yeah, exactly. And
get your attention.
That's kind of like the end of, we talk about the end of America, that ad that did super well back in the last Great Recession.
Yeah.
That played, I don't know how long that thing played, or that ad campaign ran, but it was highly successful, I would expect.
Yeah, I got a dog barking in the background.
But the end of America is like, first you got to draw people in. What? End of America?
Right.
Like, what is going on here? And then they have to understand what's going on with the market, what's going on with the shifting landscape of and how that's going to affect their portfolio. And, they've got to, there's got to be some foundation laid for those people before they have an understanding.
And this is a great example too, because even with that, and even with that being one of the most successful promotions of the last 20 years, because I think it's 2010.
Yeah.
Last I heard, they had done about 600,000, 700,000 subscriptions, buyers, right? So you think about this. This thing was crazy popular,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they only had 700,000 new subscribers, which is, don't get me wrong, that like is,
That's good.
it took the business from, a $50 million business to a, multiple $100 million business. Like it's a huge deal. But the fact is, I know what it is. The roofers just stopped by because now I hear them on the roof. So the dog is like,
gotcha,
telling me that someone's trying to break into our house. He's doing his job.
Roofers. Yeah,
he's doing
his
job.
Good boy.
Yeah, he looks scared to death sitting in that chair right now. But, so if you hear the dog barking, that's what it is. We'll try to tone it down in the edits, but yeah, so that just goes to show that even if you get a smashing success, it's still probably only going to hit 5% of the market.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to convert 100% of any market ever. Like, I mean, if you do, congratulations, build whatever mansion you want, buy a yacht, because, it's pretty amazing. So let's get into some of the specific techniques and tactics. We kind of talked a little bit of theory here. One thing he said is, that's worth repeating is the headline. The headline and its only job is to get people to read the second sentence of your ad.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the people. So ideally, if you have an ad campaign, you're launching something, the first you have to decide, do I even want all 5 stages of the market? Or am I content to just sell to the first stage or the second stage and maybe the third stage, right?
Right.
So if I know that I'm only going to sell to people who are familiar with me, which is not a bad, terrible model, right? Even with, I know everybody wants to scale to the moon these days. The fact is, you can have a pretty good business keeping current customers happy and like maybe adding on some new products and all that kind of stuff. You do want to bring some new people in, but it's, it's not as crazy as a lot of people make it sound, I think.
Right.
But you do need 2 different ads and 2 different headlines for those different groups. And I think that's important because what you're going to say after that, it's got to capture that person's attention.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are already familiar with you and your products, you can have a very offer-based stuff. You can say, hey, the new flying drone that follows you around automatically just launched and it's on sale for $249, right?
Yeah.
That's all you need to say. Like,
right.
You're sold. You've been looking for something like that. It's great. Now, if there's people who don't understand that yet, then you're going to have to do a little bit more educating, a little bit more selling. Say, hey, are you an influencer? Did you know that there's a way to, eliminate your video crew or,
absolutely
cut your video crew hours down? Or have you ever, another angle, have you ever wished you could have your own videographer?
Yeah.
That'd be a great headline for that, for that tool.
Yep. Your own personal camera guy, 24/7.
Yeah. For the cost of about, for the cost of, one day's shoot or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, then it obviously it gets further and further out. So the headlines are super important.
So I want to mention too, while we're on headline, because you sent me something this week and maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Because
he gets into that later in the chapter, but I know where you're going. So go ahead.
They laughed when we know the famous, and we've talked about this many times. They laughed when I sat down at the piano. But when I started to play, that's been around a long time and there's been variations of that. So you sent me one this week, Sean. I wish I could pull it up on our screen to show.
I can. Well,
I don't know if you have the graphic, because it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good because it even uses like even the graphics or the image, the artwork is like from the past, of the ladies who are having a non-alcoholic. There we go. They laughed when I brought non-alcoholic drinks to the party.
Then they tried
sub and couldn't stop giggling.
Yeah, and it's a 50s looking graphic, right?
Yep.
So this is very interesting because in this chapter, one of the things that Schwartz says is he's like, and he actually mentions that story-based ads were very popular in the 20s, and then they started to die out, and only like comic strips working at the time he wrote this, which was in the 60s.
Right.
So these type of very long story-based ads, you know, they kind of died out. And if you were to see most of them, you may not see them work. Although I've seen a lot of them work still to this day. But by doing this and because he said what happens is the look of the ad gets old and stale. It's not the messaging or even the copy. It's just people look at it and they're like, oh, I've seen ads like this before.
Right.
So if you go over the top, like we were talking about earlier, this is almost a form of hyperbole.
Of course.
Where you're making fun of the ad itself. Uh-oh. Can't let stuff pop up while you're doing a live show. I'll close that. I don't even know what it is.
I thought it was in relation to what we were talking about, but
yeah.
It's I see what you're saying there. It's
so you got to almost like let people know, look, I know this is an old ad,
right?
An old format.
Yep.
Although in this niche, I'm not sure people would have been familiar with it.
I doubt it.
But it does say, you know, it's kind of nostalgic and things like that. So yeah, I like the way they did that with that. But he does say in this chapter, later on in the chapter, that you need to be aware of that. And sometimes it's just a matter of changing formats, right? So going from a long form sales letter to a VSL.
Yeah.
When I was at Agora, that's kind of when a lot of that shift was happening. And I remember when we first ran a VSL, and I'd already heard about VSLs through Ryan Dice and things like that.
Yeah.
So when those came to Agora, you know, they'd been in the internet marketing world a little bit already. A lot of people think Agora used to lead the way. They were actually not. They were just had the biggest and best lists,
right,
with great buyers,
right.
But a lot of the ideas that they tested came from the internet marketing world, the Ryan Dices and things like that of the world at the time. John Benson, those guys. I remember when they first introduced the VSL with the exact same copy that they had in the long form letters, it would outpull it 10 to 12 times.
Wow.
And then after about 3 years,
they started.
It went back to about even.
Yeah.
Right. Because then people got kind of caught on to it. Then they had to start putting exit pops where people could read instead because they didn't want to sit through a video.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. And then they got into the more theatrical VSLs where they had actual, you know, B-roll and they had on-camera talking heads. And, you know, it was much more like a documentary or a news show or something like that, right? Like a Larry King advertorial type thing. So you have to, even if the messaging stays the same and the hook stays the same, one thing he talks about in here is, and this also leads into chapter 3 with the market sophistication, is as the market gets more and more aware of both what you do and their problems, they also get more and more aware of the solutions and how the solutions are presented.
Right.
That's what market sophistication part of this is. So, and I remember Clayton Makepeace used to say, a tactic known is a tactic blown. So when people start seeing the same even format of an ad, they start tuning it out faster, right?
Yep.
We see this with things like banner blindness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember, Jonathan, when like banner ads were all the rage in,
of course,
the internet, right?
Yeah.
Just throw up a banner ad and, you know, get enough eyes on it, you'll make millions, which was kind of true back then.
Yeah.
I remember we even had, and I think it was, when was that? 97, I think, or 98. We got a free PC from freepc.com. And it was literally they shipped you a whole entire computer. But on the screen, it had down the left side and across the bottom, it had banner ads.
Yeah.
They were permanently on the screen. And then you had your browser in the middle.
Yeah.
But that was how they paid for the PC and how they shipped it to you.
Yep.
And you just had to lock that on there. And then when they went out of business with the .com crash, they sent everybody the code on how to get rid of the ads, and you got to keep the PC. Which is kind of cool. But
that's crazy. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, remember like freecar.com, same thing. Like
if
you would wrap your car, they would pay your car payment and that kind of stuff. you had to fill out, you had to drive a certain number of miles and that kind of stuff. But like, where are those deals? We need to bring those back. So yeah, the market, market awareness and market sophistication, all this plays a huge role in deciding what you're messaging in and why your messaging needs to change depending on what part of the market you're talking to. That's the big takeaway.
Yeah, of course.
Any stuff in here that like you had highlighted or that you wanted to kind of bring up?
Let's see. And we're on chapter 2.
2 and 3. I mean, I could go, we could teach a month-long class on this book.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it's just, I've got so much in here highlighted. I would say that, markets change, desires change, fashions change, and so do acceptable styles of advertising. It says at the turn of the century, effective ads were written in verse, like we were just talking about. Yep. Maybe that's where you were getting this from.
It is.
And
Go ahead.
In the 20s, most of the great ads were narrative stories, either first person. You ever see the what is it? What's the blue book?
Kelly Blue Book?
Yes. Yeah. No. The famous blue book with the letters.
Oh, Robert Collier.
Robert Collier. Yeah. If you want to see some of those early century, I mean, this would go back to like Robert Collier's
30s,
20s. This is a great example because that book's filled with like all of those ads from the 20s, and they're like effective. I mean, they're like kind of short narrative stories, first person confessions, third person revelations, comic strip dramatizations. Those were really effective. You could run, and even in the, I don't know if you ever got comic books. We talked about this before, but a lot of those type ads worked really well in the comic book industry for a long time. They got a lot of pulls. But times change and the sands shift, so to speak. I almost wonder if like you went back to some of this stuff, some of this old fashioned, like we were just showing, some of this advertising, how effective it would be. I'd be curious on the.
Well, he does say in chapter 3, I believe, if you go to like the end of chapter 3, I'm pretty sure that's where he says, once you've gone through the different areas of market sophistication, it loops back around and you start all over again.
Right.
So we may very well be at that point where that kind of happens. So yeah, I think so.
Like the ads you just showed, I'll bet that. I mean, and we don't have any knowledge or numbers on that ad for the.
No, we can keep an eye on it because I can keep an eye on their ad library. If it stays running for a while, it's probably working.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think things do come back around. I think you might have to change the format slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Just so it's more. Then again, I don't know. Maybe the old school look has an appeal, that nostalgic appeal to it. That kind of stuff. You're seeing a lot of even graphics and images. They got really, you see graphics go in waves where they get really detailed and 3D, and then they get just super flat.
Yeah.
And simple, and they'll kind of go through these waves. It's kind of like, right? It's I can't remember the quote, but some comedian or actor said something about like, mini skirts, like economy moves up and down with the length of mini skirts or women's skirts.
Right.
So it's kind of like that. Like there's these trends that come and go, and they're a little bit different every time they come back.
Mm-hmm.
So history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme, as Mark Twain said.
Yep.
I think that could be true. I think it's definitely worth testing some of these old styles. And I've done that with some of the businesses I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think depending on the market you're in, obviously, if you're marketing to internet marketing guys or ad guys, they're going to be more familiar and less likely.
Right.
Then again,
what's going on. Yeah.
Then again, they might appreciate it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you really can't tell. The There's one other thing I wanted to talk about, because he talked about, and it's kind of in the same vein where we talk about, does what's old still work today, right? We talked about that at the very beginning of the show. One of the debates I hear all the time is long copy versus short copy.
Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, people's attention spans are shorter. It's only 6
Right.
seconds, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I tend to agree with you that that's true. But if that's true, like anecdotally, right, it seems correct. But then when I think about it, I'm like, no, it's not correct. Because when people get interested in something, especially if they're solving a problem, they'll read 30 blog posts, they'll buy books, they'll read magazines, whatever, to find a solution to that problem until they find it. They'll follow 16 different people with newsletters. They'll follow 20 TikTok accounts that talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing. If attention spans are getting shorter, why does every social platform start with short content and then expand to longer content?
Right. Yeah.
TikTok started with 60 seconds, then they went to 3 minutes, then they went to 10-minute videos.
Yep.
And now they're going even longer. They're testing even longer. Here's why I think that is. When people are surfing and they're numbing out and they're looking for entertainment, they're looking for the quick dopamine hits. But if you get their attention and if they start to like you, then they want to go more in depth with you.
Yeah.
It's just like if you went to a club and you saw a whole bunch of people, there might be the crazy guy at the bar telling jokes that you would listen to for, a joke or two, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but you would never want to become friends with him. But then there's another guy at the club who you just kind of vibe with him and you want to get to know him. You might, invite him, to get coffee or go to a game or something like that later because you want to get to know that person better. So I think brands and companies need to think of that as the same way. It's not that attention spans are getting shorter. It's that you just have to to catch their attention in the first place
and keep it.
And then they'll go with you however long you want to go.
Yeah. Which is, that's kind of the way, that's like the principle of copywriting from the get-go is if you hit people with a headline that captures their attention, you've done a really good job. Headline is that's like the cornerstone.
That is your the other note I made here on the doc that we had was, if attention spans are getting shorter, why did Vine ever go away?
Yeah.
The 6 second, social media.
That's right.
Why did that ever go away?
Yeah, that's true.
That's what people want.
Yeah.
Why did Instagram lose out to video? There's nothing less, quicker than a snapshot, right?
Yep.
But people got tired of pictures. They wanted video. They wanted interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's gotten longer and longer. And now YouTube is, arguably one of the most popular sites out there.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree. I agree with where you were going.
You just got to keep their attention. It's like great headline. Okay, next the sub headline. Well, you got to keep their attention there. Then the opening paragraph. Well, you better keep their attention there.
It's almost like your headline is your 60-second reel.
Yeah.
Put it in today's language. Right. Or the funny meme.
Mm-hmm.
And then your opening paragraph is your 60-second reel.
Yeah.
And then, you get into some body copy and that's like your 3-minute reel. And then, so, you could think for the youngsters out there, that's how they could think about it.
Right.
But you're just engaging them all at one time instead of trying to do it scattered out across 50,000 pieces of content with other people's messages shared in between it.
Absolutely. A lot of that too, Sean, is understanding. I think it's understanding what makes good stories, whether you're writing copy or video or what have you, being able to tell engaging stories. There's a book called, you probably read it before. I'm trying to pull up the author, The Science of Storytelling. Have you read that one?
There's so many storytelling books.
I know, but this one is not,
I don't know if I've read that one or not.
This one's really good.
What color is the?
It's black. Will Store.
I have not read that one.
Will Store.
Like I remember books by their covers, not by the author's name.
And the reason I actually even read this one because you're right. There's 100,000 books, it seems like, today on storytelling.
Yeah.
The reason I like this one, well, this was one that Joe Vitale had recommended, I guess, years ago. So it's not like, I don't know, this book's not been out here recently. It's been around for a while. But it's really good. It's like it's on, creating a character that people really, it's not like the stuff that everybody gives us nowadays. You got to have a story, you got to have a hero, blah, blah, blah. You just get tired of hearing that. This gets into the, if you're creating a protagonist,
What's
what
the name
needs,
of it?
It's called The Science of Storytelling. Will Storr, STORR. Yeah. STORR.
I'm going to bring it up for our most dedicated viewers here.
There you go.
No
it's
offense,
really good. So if you're interested and I know you're doing some writing projects, Sean, if you're interested in how to create a compelling character, I think this is a good book to read because it really gets into, some of the points he gets into on creating characters, whether you're writing a fiction or, a novel or you're writing an ad, is that people relate to characters that have flaws. And, people that are struggling, just that we can relate to.
Yeah. I mean, basically what we've talked about with, Marvel characters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We don't relate to Superman because that guy's like, he's got it all together, but we relate to, we might relate to his alter, Clark Kent, which in the original Superman was kind of a goofy dude who, was kind of corny and nerdy and, and then the Spider-Man character, the Peter Parker guy who's, kind of a deals with, he's an adolescent. He deals with all the problems adolescents, teenagers deal with. But yeah, it's really engaging in the fact that it talks to you, or it really gives you the formula for what people want when they're looking to read about a character who they can relate to. And that's what people are looking for, characters they can relate to.
Yep. Well,
if you start reading about a guy person that has it all together, it's like, just tune out. I mean, it's like, I have nothing in common with this guy.
That's why a lot of the viral posts tend to be, very vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Or at least very relatable, right? Absolutely. Even if they're funny and not necessarily like negative or vulnerable, there's something about it that's very relatable.
Yeah. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger's got a new book out called Be Useful. I don't know if you've seen about that, you read any of this, but it's really, he talks about, I mean, it's surprising because in the book he talks about all of his flaws and his, some of his biggest mistakes in life. And a lot of them are like from a personal standpoint, not just from a business standpoint, but personally, family wise, just, big mistake one after another within his family. But, and that it's engaging because I think it makes people out there understand that he's a relatable character. He's someone that has flaws. He's just not, on a pedestal out there. But
I think that's what we lose with social media. We were actually talking about that with one of my clients today, is that, people are attracted to, if you're willing to admit failure, and sometimes people are like, you see a lot of posturing around failure on social media where they'll talk about failure, but it's only 20 years later or 5 years later, or whatever.
Right.
Very few people will talk about going through a current failure and the struggle they're going through.
Right.
Brene Brown got famous for having a breakdown during a TED Talk, basically happening like right then.
Yeah.
And while she was talking about vulnerability, just all worked.
Yeah.
today she'd probably be called a fake and all that and orchestrated and all that. But I think that happened pre-social, so pre-social media. So I think it's getting harder to be vulnerable. You better be sincere about it. Because people will find you out, and they will.
Of course, absolutely.
Just acting or not. So it has to be sincere vulnerability. But yeah, the old saying just keeps coming to mind. That which is most personal is most universal.
Yeah.
And I think that's from a copy standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, if you can remember that and you can work in the personal angle, it becomes much more universal.
Yeah. So, you're absolutely right.
Well, I think we can end with that. I mean, we could go super in depth, but we're kind of, again, trying to look at this with some new angles and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think next week we can cover, probably a couple more chapters.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the specific like ad examples and things like that. We're more looking at, is this still applicable? And if not, what's changed? Those kind of ideas. So we'll start with chapter 4.
Yep.
38 ways to strengthen your headline. So that'll have a little bit more tactics to it, and maybe how to make an idea grow. Chapter 5. That'll
I like
be good.
That one.
We'll just skip chapter 4 because I think No,
I'm okay with that. We'll get into the art of creative planning, how to make an idea grow, because I think that would be completely relevant.
That seems very applicable to our social media world these days. Right? Everybody wants to make an idea grow.
Right.
Make an idea worth sharing, as TED Talks would say. So we'll start there and see how far we get.
That sounds good.
If we're not all replaced by AI by this time next week. Who knows?
Eventually, Sean, you and I will just be a couple of AI bots up here.
Yeah. Deep fakes. Just up here doing the show. We'll just feed it the last 339 episodes and it'll just
it'll spit
recreate the whole thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll just collect the royalties.
We'll just collect. Yeah, exactly. We'll be just sitting in the background like, cool. Keep it up, man.
Yeah.
Go AI. That sounds great. We'll continue our discussion, and I love these. I mean, it really does get it gets us kind of thinking. And if you haven't purchased a book, we go back to the website that we mentioned before, Breakthrough Advertising Book, I believe is.
Yep.
That is breakthroughadvertisingbook.com. Is that it? Because you can't get it on Amazon. You got to get it through.
Yeah.
I mean, this book's only available one place.
Right. Breakthrough Advertising.
I think there's a lot of new stuff on there too. You mentioned last week.
Yeah. If you get the second package, it's breakthroughadvertisingbook.com. There are 2 packages. There's the book only, and then Brian Kurtz, who's been a guest on the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's a second package that has like ads, all the ads mentioned in the book. Let's see what else it has in it. It's pretty cool stuff. And let's see, how-to exercises on how to use each chapter, custom worksheets, chapter summaries, private library of training videos.
Yeah.
Makes me want to rebuy it.
Yeah, no kidding. Can we buy the separate stuff without the book, or we have to get the whole thing?
Yeah, I should have got an affiliate link too, but I'm just not that good at making money on this show. From the show. So,
well, you can check it out again, breakthroughadvertisingbook.com. You can check out our episode over persuasionbythepint.com. This is episode 339 to my knowledge. Yep. And we'll see you guys next week. I'm assuming you sent me the email to Justin. Is that next week or the week after, or have we nailed down a time?
We have not nailed down because he does date day with his wife the whole day on Fridays.
Oh, okay. Date day. Okay.
So what you and I have to talk off air about your schedule and
gonna have to
other days
shift our schedule to accommodate his date day.
Yes.
Okay. I think we can do that. Okay. Get him on, maybe do it on a Thursday or something. So we'll talk about that off the air. Yeah, so we'll see you all next week. Again, thanks for joining us. Persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Leave us 5 stars. We appreciate it. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend.
See ya.